So welcome. It's Friday. It's the Buddha Center. It's the temple. Let's get started like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. The idea, get into a nice meditation posture wherever you are behind your avatar. And as I ring the Ching bell, the idea, focus on the sound. Really get that deep listening going. Really get that concentration going so you can absorb some Dharma today. Chances are you're going to get distracted. Happens to all of us. When it does, just gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. Then there'll be a short pause after the short meditation. I'll do the 3 recitations and then on with the talk for today. So I'll give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless, the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. And let's see. Happy Friday, Joni, and I thought I saw Bodhicia. I don't see where Bodhicia... Oh, there she... Aha! Hello, Bodhicia. Happy Friday to you, too. Excellent. Nice to see all these faces today. From cat faces to people faces. Like them all. All right. So today, you may have seen in the notice, the title of this is Be Sense-Able. Be Sense-Able. And we're going to go back to the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. We're going to pull something out of there. Those of you that have the copy of it, you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you've read it some more. Because in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, along with the Four Ennobling Truths and this ideal of the middle path, the Buddha warned us of something. He warned us of hindrances that can arise from our senses. And this is attachment to and craving for the pleasures that are offered through our six senses, like sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. Those are the five we're used to. Then consciousness is also considered a sense organ in Buddhism, and we'll get to that in a bit. But any of these senses can lead us to indulging in thoughts and actions that will hinder, right, hindrance, our spiritual practice, unless we engage appropriate mindfulness and appropriate intent as we go into our practice. So what about our senses? We pretty much think we know about them, right? We gather information about the world through them. But they can deceive us. And if you look at your own personal experience, you can see times that you've been deceived by your senses. Walking the noble path requires us to be mindful of sensory input and their effects, whether they're wholesome or unwholesome. These are the ones that can result by how we react or if we choose to respond to whatever that input might have been, whatever sensory input it was. In the first instance, the idea is we act without mindfulness. We react. We let whatever emotional context arises from our senses, whatever we've sensed, let that take control. Let that be our active component. But in the second, we act with mindfulness, right? So we respond. We respond intelligently, with a little wisdom, based on our experience, and try to get that most wholesome consequence that we can. In Buddhism, there is that sixth sense. We know that there's sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. Those are grilled into us since we're little kids. But in Buddhism, this idea of the sixth sense is consciousness because it's interconnected and interdependent on the other five senses and how it operates. And again, we're going to get to that here in a bit too. So this is why the emphasis in Buddhist practices, there's so much of this, train the mind, right? Listen to your mind, watch your mind. So there's a sutra, it's called the Itivuttaka Sutta. And in there, the Buddha cautions this. Thus have I heard. Eye and ear and nose, tongue and body and mind. When a person leaves these doors unguarded, knowing no moderation, not restraining their senses, they experience stress. Stress in body, stress in mind. Whether by day or by night, they live in suffering and stress. So with just this little short piece, little short verse, the Buddha is warning us that all of our senses, all six of them, can fool us. They can guide us in unwholesome directions if we let them. Again, our responsibility. Of the six, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body, or touch, if you will, are transmitting each moment as they experience it. The mind, kind of a different animal, because it can misperceive or misinterpret the input of the other senses if it's not trained properly. Not only that, but it can create its own sensory input totally apart from the other five. It has the ability to create these things in our mind. Now, in some instances, so the conscious mind, or the consciousness, can create sensory input whose only link to reality is in the consciousness's ability to mimic reality. So the mind must be trained to be aware that sensory input doesn't always present the reality of the situation. Now, you may have heard, and you may have said it yourself, if I can't trust my senses, what can I trust? Well, bad news, can't trust your senses all the time either. But you can learn to. You can learn to make them trustworthy. So it isn't really our senses that are lying to us or trying to deceive us. It is actually the mind that processes their input that will be deceived if you allow it to be. This is what's meant in that little verse from the sutra, doors unguarded. The senses, kind of a metaphor of the senses come through these doors into the mind, and we've got to guard that door. We've got to say, whoa, sight, are you absolutely certain that's what I'm seeing? Maybe check on that first. I'm going to give you examples of each one. Little examples. Let's start with eyes, vision, sight, what we see. I want you to picture yourself. You are driving down the street, just street in your neighborhood, and you see a guy on the corner and he's got a dog on a leash. And as you come up to the stop sign and you're stopping, you see this man, he steps in front of the dog and he clenches his fist at the dog and he aims it right at the dog's nose. Well, you roll down your window of your car real quick and you holler at the man, "Don't you be abusing that dog." Well, the man looks up at you with a kind of a confused expression as you step out of your car to defend this dog. Well, this has happened directly to me. This is a personal experience. I was the man walking the dog. The lady in the car, she proceeded to scream at me about animal abuse, and she was threatening to call the police, and all I could do was stand there in reality and just be quiet, not say anything until she was done. So when she finally went silent, because I didn't respond, this gave me the opportunity to step in front of my dog again. Her name was River. Step in front of her again, clench my fist in front of her, and River sat down obediently, and I gave her the treat. The woman gave me a pained look, never said I'm sorry, because without another word, she just got back in her car and drove away. What she saw wasn't what she saw. And she reacted instead of responding. The clenched fist, when I train my dogs, that is their command to sit. That's their silent command for their butt to hit the ground. That's all it is. So if she would have got out of the car and not trusted what she saw and asked questions first, everything would have been cool. But as it is, I got a little stress thrown at me and she got a bunch of embarrassment thrown at her. That could have been avoided. We can't always trust what we see. So, ears. So you're sitting on a bench. You're in your local park. It's really beautiful out. Nice spring day, you're kicked back, and your cell phone rings. And you take it out of your pocket and you try to answer it, and there's no one on the line. There's not a missed call, there's not a message, nothing. So you stick it back in your pocket, and it rings again. You pull it out of your pocket, you look at it again, no call. Where you figure, maybe it's somebody else's phone, so you look around. There's nobody close by. Got your phone right in your hand, and it rings again. This time you listen a little more closely. And you realize the ringing sound isn't coming from your phone, it's coming from over your head. And you look up, and on the branch of a tree above your head, there's this slim brown and gray bird. And it raises its head to the sky, opens its beak, and makes the sound of a cell phone ringing. It wasn't your cell phone that was ringing, it was the mockingbird mimicking the sound of your phone, of the many phones it probably heard in that park every day. What you thought you heard, that sensory input from your ears, wasn't right. You have to look. You have to question. You have to have that door guarded. Is that really what I heard? Then nose, good old smell. Now again, this is a personal experience. When I was in my early teens, this is something that I did to make extra money, and you'll get the point here in a second. So, you're out hunting for snakes in the woods of Georgia. This late spring, you're out there, it's a sunny day, there's a carpet of fall leaves that still cover the ground out in these deep woods. And as you're walking along looking for snakes, you get this breeze comes over you and there's this rich odor of fresh cucumber. I like fresh cucumber. Makes really good stuffed salads and all that. But anyway, so you see this clump of vegetation and you're bending over and reaching toward it, and a voice says, "Stop. Look closely at the leaves there." And you do. And curled up right where you were reaching for, there's this bright eye watching you. It looks like it's an eye within the leaves, but it's not. It's a copperhead snake. They blend in beautifully with the leaves. Well, the voice that said, "Stop," this was the zoo handler that was training you to catch snakes. And his experience had made him mindful that the smell of cucumber in that environment didn't mean somebody had planted cucumbers in the woods. It meant that there was a poisonous species of snake nearby. And now I knew it too. But I trusted my nose. Right? Oh, that's just cucumbers. No harm in cucumbers. Again, leaving that door unguarded, that could have been bad. Body, touch, if you will. What your skin feels. So it's 10,000 feet elevation. You're in the Rocky Mountains. You've been camping. And you know it gets cold at night. But right then, man, it's daytime. The bright sun is shining. You're up there 10,000 or so feet, and the sun feels really good. And hiking along, you find a beautiful spot. You sit down on a boulder. You're enjoying the scenery. Man, it's beautiful out there. And you feel a little warm, so you take off your jacket. And an hour passes as you're sitting there, and you decide, I'll have some lunch, eat a sandwich, take some pictures, you drink some nice water, and you're really surprised that, it's not as cold as you thought it should be. And in fact, you kind of feel warm and content sitting there. Well, your friend comes up to join you and remarks, "Man, it's cold out here. Why don't you have your jacket on?" And you say that you feel fine, you feel warm, feel comfortable. It's not a problem. Well, your friend recognizes the onset of hypothermia and insists you put on your jacket and then builds a fire and helps you warm up. Doors unguarded. That kind of door unguarded can cause you really serious harm, like, death. So again, touch. Can we always trust it? No. We have to train the mind to be mindful, if you will, to be more aware of your surroundings. And I said I'd get to mind and consciousness. And I got to tell you another personal experience here. I like using these because we all have them. They won't be exactly the same. There'll be a little similarity sometimes. But this is all about mind and consciousness. And I mentioned that consciousness, it can build a whole picture and it can include a lot of your senses when none of the stuff is really happening. It can all be, let's call it what it is, an illusion. So you're sound asleep in bed. And there's a creaking noise in the bedroom and you wake up, man, because that's a noise you haven't heard before. It sounded like the door opening. So you lay there motionless in the bed. There's another sound. There's a squeak in the floorboards. Now your heart begins to race as you imagine there is someone standing right at the foot of your bed. Did you lock the front door? How did they get in? There's another noise like a whisper of leather on wood. Now they have moved to the dresser. Are they going through the drawers? Heart is really racing now. Eyes still closed, your fear mounts. In your mind's eye, you see them at the bedside table picking up your wallet. Fear is mounting as you struggle to fake sleeping so they don't harm you or your family. For minutes you lay still, your heart's just pounding in your chest. Fear builds up and you just can't take it anymore. You hope they have left without you hearing. You sit up in bed, you look around the room. At the bedroom door, you see your cat rubbing against the door. And it creaks. The first noise you heard was the cat rubbing the door. All the rest was a creation of the mind fueled by imagination, not reality. So in each of these instances above, the senses were transmitting reality in their own limited ability. Senses don't have all the facts. Senses don't know intention. Senses can be altered by our own fears and our desires and our ignorance and our habitual reactivities. Not accepting this as a reality can lead to unguarded senses. And mindfulness and awareness are the guards that we place in front of those doors. So, don't jump to conclusions when you see a man and a dog. Watch for an extra moment or determine the man's intent by just asking. Remember that it is not only a cell phone that can make a ringing sound, so don't only look for the obvious. Before searching for the source of a pleasing odor, ask yourself this question. Is this odor appropriate for the time and the place that I'm in? Because it could be wrong place, wrong time. That's a message, right? That's guarding the door. The body can delude the mind into believing it is warm. Be aware of the conditions. Respond appropriately. Be mindful that the consciousness will create the worst of simulations if you allow it to. Be mindful that it can also create the best of situations, and that can also be a delusion. The instances were initially reacted to based on emotion, ego, and ignorance. Getting past the hindrances allowed the situations to be responded to appropriately. That's what we're shooting for. We must restrain the senses so that we are mindful of their input, we don't react to just that input. We look at the whole of the moment. I have to say it. Got new faces. Is this easy? No. Is it valuable? Yeah. Does it take work? Absolutely. So I'll end back with the sutta, the verse from the sutta. Eye and ear and nose, tongue and body and mind. When a person leaves these doors unguarded, knowing no moderation, not restraining their senses, they experience stress. Stress in the body, stress in the mind. Whether by day or by night, they live in suffering and stress. So through our senses, we perceive the world. And thank goodness we have them, right? We depend on them, and we should. But perception is not always reality. We also have to accept that. Guarding the doors into the mind requires mindfulness of our desires, our intentions, and our needs. And also the awareness that things are not always how they appear to our senses. Don't leave the doors unguarded.